sa ating lahat, mga kaibigan. Today, Tapatan sa Aristocrat marks its 8th anniversary. We recall the trying times we had when Areopagus Communications and the Aristocrat agreed to host the public affairs event. At Areopagus, we thought of newsworthy topics while the Aristocrat provided sandwiches and brewed coffee. We also had ordinary citizens sitting as resource persons with newsmakers for a clear discussion of issues. Some have risen to prominence, serving in government and the corporate world. Others have come out of retirement to share their views nonetheless. Today, we remember our guests who have gone ahead as we thank them for their frank insights and commitment to the freedom of expression. We pray for their souls' eternal repose. We thank our sponsors for bringing us together. Of course, we say thank you to our friends from the Aristocrat, represented by its president, Mr. Raymond Reyes. I'll call on him a bit later. We also thank our sponsors, our friends from Globe, Nickel Asia, the Federation of Filipino-Chinese Chambers of Commerce and Industry, the Pharmaceutical and Healthcare Association of the Philippines, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, our friends from PLDT Smart, and Manila Water and Maynilad, and of course, the Aristocrat. Our 8th anniversary, today, we'll have the Bangsa Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao as main topic. It was in 2012 that the government and the MILF signed the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsa Moro. I remember flying to Kota Kinabalu to check on our Filipino in the area, our Filipinos in the area, whether they'll be going home to the Philippines because the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsa Moro agreement has been signed. And they said, we will not go home. So it dawned to me that most of our brother Muslims in Kota Kinabalu were more of economic migrants. But anyway, we will discuss the details today. We have the Bangsa Moro Organic Law and the Bangsa Moro Transition Commission. And let's talk about the details today. But before anything else, let me introduce our good friend, Mr. Raymond A. Reyes, to say a few words on our 8th anniversary. Good morning and welcome.
Hi, good morning, Melo, and honored guests, especially sa Maguindanao. Peace be with you, and we hope peace will reign in Mindanao and progress as well. Unfortunately, nasa Zoom meeting po tayo, but it was an idea that I broached out to Melo during the pandemic, and soon enough, Melo picked it up, and here we are continuing with the Tapatan sa Aristocrat by Zoom. So welcome everybody, and I hope everybody's well, and hope also that mabakuna lahat sa Maguindanao. Salamat po.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raymond Reyes, and we look forward to the usual chicken barbecue. Na paborito pala ni Secretary Harry Roque. But anyway, welcome and thank you for being with us, and thank you for hosting our Tapatan sa Aristocrat, though virtually. We look forward to having the normalization, so to speak. Okay.
Maybe next year, no?
Diba? Hopefully. So we thank you for the hospitality, and of course, see you sometime from now. All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes, and regards to the family. Now, let me introduce our guests today. Mga kaibigan, ang mga panauhin po natin ay mga newsmaker mula po naman sa Bangsa Moro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. And of course, sa ating pong palatuntunan, We have with us the Honorable Nagib Sinarimbo. He's the Minister of Interior and Local Government and spokesman of BARMM. We also have, we will have the Honorable Abdul Sakurtan, the Governor of the province of Sulu. And we expect Congresswoman Amihilda Sangkopan of Anak Mindanao. General Wilben Mayor is the Chief of Staff and spokesperson of the Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process. Attorney Ishak Veloso Mastura is the Chairman and Managing Head of the Regional Board of Investments of BARMM. We also have with us Dr. Pancho Lara Jr., Senior Peace and Conflict Advisor of International Alert Philippines, and our good friend Timoy Labi Leticio Datuwata of the Timoy Justice Governance from South UP in Maguindanao. So let's start our discussions. Walk us through, Assistant Secretary Wilben Mayor, of the peace process, the normalization. Tell us more about this. Is this working in the first place?
Thank you, Melo. Thank you for having me here. And congratulations to your 8th anniversary celebration. Magandang umaga rin po sa mga andito ngayon, mga panelists, Minister Sinarimbo BARMM, and Raymond Reyes. Sayang hindi nga tayo nakapagkape na at mag-barbecue man lang dahil tayo nasa BTC. Hindi naman pwede ipadala through BTC yung mga merienda natin. Kaya next time siguro December, hopefully if our vaccination will really push through. That's the aim of Secretary Galvez, and we hope by December magkita-kita tayo physically. Again, thank you for having me here and give me the opportunity to present to you the ongoing normalization process in the BARMM. Please bear with me with
the recording has stopped. This meeting is being recorded.
Yes, please.
A host, can you please
Good.
allow
Is it
us
already
to
there?
share our screen?
Yes, you're already allowed. Yes, go ahead, Asek.
Thank you. Nakikita niyo na pa ang slides?
Yes.
Can you, yan. Ayan, okay. Thank you. Good morning to all again. Thank you for this opportunity to present before you the updates on the Bangsamoro peace process. Shown is the outline of my presentation. Shown is, next slide please. Shown is the roadmap for the implementation of the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro or COB, which has two tracks, the political track and normalization track. Next slide, please. Shown are the accomplishments in the political track of the COB. This includes the OPA facilitation and support to the enactment of the BOL, establishment and capacitation of the BTA with all ministries under Article 16 of the BOL, the BTA's enactment of the 3 of the 7 priority codes, the Administrative Code, Civil Service Code, Education Code, approval of the Bangsamoro Development Plan, and the operationalization of the Intergovernmental Relations Body and other IGR mechanisms. Next slide, please. Section 13, Article 16 of the BOL provides that the first regular election for the Bangsamoro government shall be held and synchronized with the 2022 national elections following the resolution adopted by the BTA in 2020, urging for more time to perform and fulfill its mandate. Several bills were filed in the House of Representatives and the Senate for the postponement of the first regular election. Normalization is a process whereby communities can achieve their desired quality of life, which includes the pursuit of sustainable livelihood and political participation within a deliberative society. It is composed of 4 aspects, namely security, socioeconomic programs, confidence-building measures, and transitional justice and reconciliations. As shown, the security aspect is further divided into 5 components: the transitional components, the commissioning, redeployment of the armed forces of the Philippines, policing, and disbandment of private armed groups. Next slide, please. The OPA facilitated the creation of the Intercabinet Cluster Mechanism of Normalization, that supervises the national government's efforts on the normalization program in the Bangsamoro, enabling efficient coordination of national government agencies in its implementation. On the security component of normalization, we have decommissioned 12,145 combatants and 2,175 weapons during phase 1 and 2 of the decommissioning process. To secure mutually agreed areas in the region while normalization process is ongoing, we have also deployed 12 out of 15 joint peace and security teams. The GPSTs are operating units composed of contingents from the AFP, PNP, and the Bangsamoro Islamic Armed Forces of the MLF. Meanwhile, through our Government Joint Normalization Committee, we have organized the National Task Force for the disbandment of private armed groups in the BARMM and its adjacent regions of 9 and 12. Earlier this month, the DLG, as the agency of the NTF-DPAG, started its DPAG's rollout in Region 9 to raise awareness and capacity of LGUs in disbanding PAGs. To date, 10 PAGs have already been disbanded, which shows that the efforts of the government to exert pressure in these lawless elements to give up their illegal activities are now bearing fruit. We have also built partnership with the provincial local government units in the BARMM for the Small Arms and Light Weapons Program. Through the IGRB-created Technical Working Group, OPAP is also assisting the NAPOLCOM and the PNP in crafting one of the guidelines for the entry of MLF and MLLF members into the PNP as provided for in the POL. The socioeconomic packages to be given to the decommissioned MLF combatants and their communities include the 4 components, namely, number 1, social protection, livelihood and employers assistance, capacity development, community-based physical infrastructure. The OPAP entered into institutional arrangement with various national line agencies for the implementation of these socioeconomic development programs under each component. Social protection interventions include the provision of immediate cash assistance amounting to 100,000 pesos per combatant. This initiative was carried out in partnership with DSWD, wherein 12,145 decommissioned combatants under phases 1 and 2 have received the cash assistance. Together with the Department of Social Welfare and Development, we conduct an engagement program for decommissioned combatants that paves the way for their complete transformation. This is part of the follow-through process to ensure that they and their families and communities' needs are taken into inclusive consideration. Based on our initial data, more than 60% of the decommissioned combatants' livelihood settlement grant, or more than 200 million, were utilized for agriculture, forestry, and fishing-related livelihoods, while the rest were utilized in wholesale and retail trade, repair of motor vehicles, transport and storage, manufacturing, among others. This only shows that through the initial socioeconomic package we have provided, the decommissioned combatants and their families were able to enhance their livelihoods, especially in agriculture, forestry and fishing, the major industries in Mindanao. Intervention under infrastructure include housing assistance and other ongoing community-based interventions, particularly the construction and rehabilitation of irrigation system with the NIA, the construction of rural health units with birthing facilities with DOH, and the MOH BARMM, and solid waste segregation system with the DTI, which also created employment and livelihood opportunities for out-of-school youth and decommissioned MLF combatants. OPAP entered into constitutional arrangements with various agencies for the implementation of the socioeconomic development programs, such as the DOLE for short-term and emergency employment programs, the DA for livelihood investment programs, and the TESDA and MBHTE BARMM for technical vocational training programs. Details of this partnership will be presented as we move along. In addition to the immediate cash assistance given to each of the decommissioned combatants, they were also provided with health premium coverage under PhilHealth, as well as assistance with their civil registration with the Philippine Statistics Authority. The Philippine Health Insurance Corporation included in its proposed budget for fiscal year 2022 the enrollment of health insurance premium of 14,000 more Islamic Liberation Front Bangsamoro Islamic Armed Forces members who will undergo the third phase of decommissioning. Skills training and development, we believe, is one of the most highly beneficial programs under this component, which will have a long-lasting impact in the lives of the decommissioned combatants, their families, and communities. Here, we do not only provide them with the tools, but we also capacitate them to lead productive civilian lives away from the narratives of conflict in the past. For capacity development, interventions include the values transformation training with the Bangsamoro Development Authority, alternative learning system, study grant program for higher education, and technical vocational educational training. A total of 70 decommissioned combatants will soon graduate from the technical vocational education training program under the TESDA with assistance of MBHTE BARMM technical education sector. They took trainings on pastry making, rice making, electrical installation, and maintenance and processed food fermentation. On April 27 of this year, the Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process and the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao's BARMM Ministry of Basic, Higher and Technical Education, or MBHTE, forged a memorandum of agreement for the implementation of 146.8 million worth of education programs in the BARMM. These include the 56.5 million Bangsamoro Grants in Aid Higher Education Program and the 90.3 million Alternative Learning System Program for decommissioned combatants and their dependents, including selected residents from 6 previously recognized MILF camps. Under the MOA, OPAP shall provide funds amounting to 146.8 directly to the BARMM upon the signing of the agreement and the completion of pre-project implementation documentary requirements. For livelihood employment assistance, interventions include the livelihood investment programs with the DA, social entrepreneurship with the DTI, and short-term employment with the DOLE. In 2019, 5,975 beneficiaries, including decommissioned combatants from the 6 previously acknowledged MILF camps, availed of the 30-day emergency employment through the Tulong Panghanap Buhay sa Ating Disadvantaged Displacement Workers or TUPAD program of the DOLE. Last March, the DTI launched a 16.5 million mechanized solid waste segregation system project in Butig, Lanao del Sur, to create employment and livelihood opportunities for out-of-school youth and decommissioned MILF combatants. Interventions under infrastructure include housing assistance, wherein the NHA has committed 60 million for pilot housing projects for MILF decommissioned combatants in Maguindanao. There are also ongoing community-based interventions, particularly construction and rehabilitation of irrigation system with the NIA and the construction of rural health units with birthing facilities with the DOH and MOH BARMM. To help ease the burden among 12,145 decommissioned combatants, their families, in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic, we have also initiated distribution of rice subsidies to all the decommissioned combatants in partnership with the United Nations Development Program. The distribution of the 16 million total worth of rice assistance is now completed. Also, we will be signing a memorandum agreement with the National Housing Authority to address the housing requirements of selected decommissioned combatants who experience displacement due to intermittent armed conflict pre-peace agreement. Under the confidence building measure component of the normalization track, we are laying the groundwork for the transformation of the 6 previously acknowledged MILF camps. To carry this out, the Joint Task Forces on Camps Transformation closely work with the Bangsamoro Planning and Development Authority for the crafting of the camps transformation plan. The CTP is currently awaiting approval of the government and the MILF peace implementing panels, pending the completion of the camps transformation investment program this month. Under the CTP, we hope to develop the full economic potential of these MILF camps so that they become show windows of peace and development. In February of this year, the President issued Proclamation number 1090, granting amnesty to MILF members who have committed crimes in furtherance of their political beliefs. Executive Order number 125 was also issued, creating the National Amnesty Commission for the granting of amnesty to members of various rebel groups, including the MLF. Last month, the House of Representatives issued its concurrence to the proclamation. Pending concurrence from the Senate, the NAC shall be constituted for the disposition of cases. The OPAP serves as the NAC Secretariat. Also last month, the government, MILF, and the World Bank launched the Bangsamoro Normalization Trust Fund, a multi-donor funding facility created by the parties to support the implementation of the program of normalization in the Bangsamoro. In 2019, the government and the MLF selected the World Bank as the fund manager of the BNTF. For the transitional justice and reconciliation component, the Intercabinet Cluster Mechanism on Normalization has approved the proposed transitional justice and reconciliation roadmap, which is a key component of the normalization track of the CALP. The roadmap was officially transmitted to MLP's implementing panel for review. Amid pandemic, a series of dialogues on TGR and dealing with the past framework is being conducted in Bangsamoro communities and the MILF-TWG for TGR. The capacity development initiative is part of ensuring that the TGR aspect of the normalization program is jointly implemented by both parties through the government MILF Technical Working Group on TGR. Based on our assessment in the government with the various normalization mechanisms, shown are the major components that need to be completed under the program for normalization in the Bangsamoro. The decommissioning of 70% or approximately 28,000 MILF combatants is yet to be done. Parallel security arrangements such as the disbandment of private armed groups, the management of small arms and light weapons, dispute resolution, policing, and amnesty should be strengthened in order to ensure human security in the communities. Full socioeconomic programs for the decommissioned combatants in their communities, the development of 6 previously acknowledged MLF camps, and programs on transitional justice and reconciliation should continue to be rolled out to complete the program for normalization. These are based on initial projections and are continuing socioeconomic interventions which require meticulous project management. These components are expected to be completed by 2028. The transformation of 6 MLF camps also continues pending approval and implementation of camp transformation plan. Just like the socioeconomic programs, this component requires massive amounts of funding. The rollout of TGR programs is also ongoing, while the TGR roadmap is still undergoing review by the MILF panel. With greater collaboration, sense of accountability, and ownership among parties to sustain the peace dividends, the Duterte administration through the OPAP remains committed to pursuing all sides in the Bangsamoro. Thank you, Melo. That's all. Gandang umaga po.
Maraming salamat po, Assistant Secretary Wilben Mayor, who was our regular guest in 2015 as we were preparing for the papal visit of Pope Francis that year. Okay? So, standby din siya ng Aristocrat noon sa ating mga forum. We're joined by Governor Abdu Sakurtan, who's already on the line, and the Honorable Congresswoman Hilda Sangkopan. Let's start with Governor Abdu Sakurtan. Magandang umaga po, Governor. Governor? Wala pa si Governor sa connection yata natin. Sige. Congresswoman Hilda Sangkopan, good morning and welcome to the discussions.
Yes, hello.
Nice to see you.
Magandang umaga po, Sir Melo.
Opo.
Salamat po sa imbitasyon.
Maganda po yung pagkakapresent ng ating kasamang si Assistant Secretary Wilben Mayor. What are your thoughts about this?
Sa usapin po ng normalization, mahabang presentasyon po na kahit po sa amin sa camera ay napresenta na po yan ni ASEC Wilben. So, ang usapin naman po ng normalization, ang tinatanong natin kung sinasabi na they have somehow implemented around 60% of the normalization track programs. The question that we actually want to ask is where where are the budget for these programs taken from? If we are to look at the GAA, saan po siya nakalagay, saan siya napaloob? Kasi mahalaga po yung puntos ng budget kasi kung gugustuhin po natin yung sustainability, yung matapos po talaga yung usapin ng normalization, saan po yung kabuang budget makikita natin? Kung will it be delivered by phases? If by phases, ilang taon po ang ine-expect natin na ma-deliver natin for the 12,000 combatants that were initially decommissioned. Yung po yung mga katanungan kasi we receive reports from the ground na somehow there are some disgruntled decommissioned combatants na they have not received the full, or if we're saying 60%, does that mean 60% of every decommissioned combatants were provided already with the social package that have been mentioned by ASEC Wilben? These are things that probably when we get to deliberate on the bill spending in the joint committee with regards to the resetting of the 2022 BARMM election, then probably these are things that we could trash out, Melo.
Yeah. Congresswoman, do you have the luxury of time, considering that you have very limited session days at the House of Representatives, and most, if not all, lawmakers are focused on the coming 2022 elections and their eventual re-election?
We were really hoping that something could have been resolved before the CNDA. Now, I don't want to preempt actions of Congress. Anyway, we don't know when the budget hearing for the 2022 fiscal year general appropriations bill will be discussed in Congress. I still am hopeful that somehow we could still deliberate on the proposed bill for the resetting of the BARMM election.
I see.
Ang hirap po kasi magsalita. Otherwise, not giving hope to the people kasi pag nagsalita ka on the other side, you are already judged as you are not for peace. No, categorically, ako as representative of AMIN, Sir Melo, we've always been supportive of the different peace track. We've always been supportive since MOA AD. We've fought it in Congress, we've fought it on the street. So hindi na po siguro po matatanong yun. But right now, we have some concerns that we also have to trash out before we even vote on the resetting of the BARMM election.
I see. Okay, thank you very much. Minister Nakib Senarimbo, magandang umaga. Ano po ang pinakahuling sa inyong lugar so far?
Good morning, Melo. Good morning ho sa mga kasama natin. Medyo madami hong nangyayari sa region. In terms of doon sa disaster, ang pinaka-latest natin is the plane crash nung C-130 in Sulu. Alam nyo naman ho na yung island provinces sa ngayon ay nagkakaroon tayo ng major challenge, lalo na doon sa pag-abot dahil sa lockdown na pinapatupad sa iba-ibang LGU. Most especially Zamboanga City. Pagpunta ho ng island provinces, kailangan natin dumaan ng Zamboanga. Yung protocols na nasa Zamboanga is tedious at mahirap dumating doon. Kaya ho yung pagdating doon sa mga island provinces, ang pinaka-effective na partner natin is the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Utilizing yung mga aircraft nila at saka yung Navy vessels. Lalo na ho ngayong pandemic, yung pagpaabot ng mga medical supplies, PPEs at iba pang emergency assistance sa island provinces ay dumarating lang yan through the facilitation ng assets ng Armed Forces of the Philippines. Yun ho ang kasama doon sa mga challenges natin. But for now sa regional government, tuloy-tuloy naman ho yung trabaho sa region. Nakafocus tayo doon sa major programs ng regional government. In the field of infrastructure, inaayos ho natin yung implementation na nung 2020 at saka 2021 na budget. Kasi ho yung 2020 hindi natin natapos last year dahil sa madaming lockdown. yung 2020 ho na budget natin, in fact, yung 65 billion, 38% lang noon ang nagagamit ng regional government. That's roughly around 25 billion. Yung 40 billion is still with the regional treasury ng Bangsamoro government because of the operationalization ng block grant system. So hindi na ho nagre-revert yan sa national, nandito sa atin yung management ng fund na yan. So for now, ang total na mako-construct na infrastructure in terms of roads sa regional government, that's for the island provinces at saka yung mainland provinces, nasa 1,030 kilometers na total na road network ang budgeted for 2020 and 2021. Yung part ng 2020 ho ay ongoing na yung implementation yan. That includes yung mga barangays from North Cotabato na sumali sa atin, yung 63. So kasali na ho sila sa nabigyan ng mga proyekto. Also, under the 2020 and 2021 na appropriations natin, wala ring hong pili. So lahat ho ng munisipyo, yung 116 na municipalities plus yung 3 cities and the 5 provinces, lahat ho yan may allocation. So wala hong na-miss dyan na munisipyo na nabigyan ng infrastructure fund. So yun ho yung tuloy-tuloy na ini-implement sa ngayon. Liban ho dyan, yung mga ibang programa based doon sa pangangailangan ng mga kababayan natin, pati mga munisipyo ina-address na rin natin. Like yung in terms of presence ng governance sa baba, pinaka-basic ko rito yung mga barangays. Meron ho tayong 400 na barangay sa region na walang government center. So ibig sabihin niyan, wala siyang barangay hall na napupuntahan ng mga tao para ma-access yung services nila. Of that 400, nakaprogram ho yung 250 na i-implement yung lalagyan ng barangay. Nasa ministry ko ho yan. Nabid na ho namin yung total na 75 units ng barangay halls.
Mhm.
Inaayos na rin ho natin yung bidding doon sa SPMS box na mga barangay halls.
Okay.
Meron tayong mga munisipyo sa region na for the longest time walang municipal hall. Ang isang halimbawa ho niyan ay South UP na sunog noong 1990s hanggang sa ngayon, eskwelahan lang ang ginagamit nila. And then yung sa Butig, nasunog ng Mauti nung nagkaroon tayo ng giyera noong 2016 dyan, papalitan ho natin yan. So a total of 11 municipal buildings are being constructed across the region ho.
Mhm.
In terms of our fight against poverty, alam niyo naman ho na sa matagal na panahon yung poverty incidence in the region ay patuloy na tumataas. Hindi ho naka-close, hindi ho nasasara. Maraming analysis na ginawa na kung bakit tumataas lalo yung poverty incidence sa region. Ang tingin ho natin ay isa sa pinaka-major na challenge natin dyan ay yung service delivery in the region ay hindi masyado malinaw. Kasi ho, nung nagkaroon tayo ng devolution in 1991 through the local government code, mas naunang na-devolve yung powers na ito sa regional government in 1989 when we created the ARMM.
Mhm.
So, ang nangyari, hindi binaba ng regional government yung service delivery doon sa mga LGUs. Kaya ho, may mga munisipyo tayo na yung basic na mga appointments for department heads, like head ng agriculture o head ng social welfare, wala ho sa kanila yan kasi hindi ho na-devolve sa kanila.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
ngayon, kailangan natin yung institutional arrangement na mas maayos para ho ma-account natin talaga kung sino ang hindi nagdi-deliver ng services. Is it the region or the local government units?
All right.
Kasi kung ganito ho kalabo yung delineation ng functions, nagkakaroon ho talaga ng sisihan kung sino ang hindi nagdi-deliver. Si former ARMM ba ang hindi nag-deliver ng services o kaya yung mga local government units? Given yung impact ng Mandanas ruling na mayroong increase ka na 36% doon sa era ng mga LGUs, lalo hong kailangan natin na mas malinaw yung delineation ng function
Okay.
para humaklaro yan. Alam din ho natin na may challenge tayo ngayon doon sa mga maliliit-liit na grupo na hindi sumama sa MILF doon sa peace agreement. Lalo na nung nagka-problema tayo halimbawa sa MOA-ED in 2008, nag-break up yung MILF, yung portion ng 105th Base Command nito ay humiwalay. Ito yung naging BIFF sa ngayon. Nung nagkaroon ho tayo ng peace agreement in 2014, in-invite sila ng MILF, hindi rin ho sila sumama. Sa ngayon ay in-invite natin sila. May sections, may portion sa kanila na willing na bumalik sa MILF. Inaayos lang ho natin yung paano yung return nila sa atin at yung ultimate na decommissioning process para sa kanila. Ito ho yung mga grupong napapansin nyo na nagkukos pa rin ng manakanakang incident ng violence dito sa Maguindanao.
Okay.
And then, ASG sa Sulu at sa Basilan, and then yung Mauti at saka Daula Islamia naman doon sa Lanao del Sur. Meron ho tayong specific na program para sa kanila targeting this one dahil nung 2019 sa Davao ho nagkaroon ng National Peace and Order Council meeting, hiningi namin nung panahon na yon ni Chief Minister na i-cover yung BIFF, ASG, Mauti at saka Daula Islamia under the ICLIP program. Ito ho yung para sa CPP-NPA na mga nagbabalik loob. Pero unfortunately, doon sa meeting na yon, ang naging position ng national government ay hindi sila pwedeng i-cover ng ICLIP.
Okay.
Kaya nagkaroon ng sariling regional program yung BARMM. Ito yung Project Tugon. Currently, nasa 157 ho yung naka-enroll dyan na mga BIFF. Ang program looks at providing them yung cash assistance pag bumalik ho sila sa atin, and then merong training sa kanila para sa skills development, and then nagkakaroon sila ng livelihood package at saka bahay.
Okay.
For this year, allocate ho tayo ng good for 250 na mga potentially ASG and BIFF na magiging beneficiary ng program na to. Para lang ho merong napupuntahan yung mga ibang rebelding grupo na hindi kaparte doon sa 1996 peace agreement at saka ho nung 2014 na comprehensive agreement.
Yeah.
On the Bangsamoro. So overall, ina-address ho natin yung institution building in the Bangsamoro. Tumutulong tayo doon sa primary task ng OPAP na i-transition yung combatants ng MILF. And then, ina-address natin yung mga nagko-contribute doon sa challenges natin doon sa peace and security region by providing a program for them. So ito ho yung roughly ito yung outline nung inaayos ho ng gobyerno natin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Minister. We have Governor Abdul Sakurtan all the way from Holo, Sulu. And I thank him for taking time out to be with us despite the busy schedule. Governor, what's the latest from your end sa Holo? Ano na po yun nangyari doon sa C-130? Can you please update us, Governor? Paki-unmute lang po. Unmute natin. Yes. One more time. Yeah, Governor. Opo, anong latest?
Maraming salamat, Melo, sa pag-imbita. At una, yung nangyari na crash kahapon ay na-recover na lahat. Ang mga namatay at saka mga wounded ay nadala na lahat sa hospital. Ang namatay ay nasa Zamboanga na at mag-identify na lang ng mga kung sino-sino sila, yung mga namatay. Kasi maraming nasunog. So, ang namatay ay 47, ang wounded ay 49, at meron pa 3 civilian na nabagsakan, 3 namatay, at 4 nasa ospital na wounded na civilian. So, yun po. At agad-agad, nagano si Presidente, napadala kagad ng mga tulong at saka tumulong lahat ang ating mga provincial PDRRM, MC at saka yung mga MDRRM ng Hulo at Patikol at saka mga ano natin, mga organisasyon, lahat tulong-tulong. At ating mga kapulisan, Coast Guard, lahat. At tumulong diyan sa ano. So far yon ang natin. Melo.
Very sad yung nangyari kahapon. Pero how did the community take it? Dahil meron kayong mga kababayan na naapektuhan din. What form of assistance have you extended to them as provincial governor?
Ang inaano namin ngayon, we talked already, we discussed this already with General Gonzales. Lahat ng kailangan nila na kaya ng provincial government, sa personal, ay pwede naman tayo tumulong. Nag-usap kami ni Congressman Samir, ay magbibigay kami ng cash assistance na kami ni Congressman Samir at least 20,000 per isang pamilya ng wounded sa isang pamilya ng mga namatay. So, hope we can send it today. At yung mga civilian, pinalibing na namin, yung tatlo ay nabigyan din ng 50,000 na para sa tatlong na malibing kaagad na ano, tapos bigyan din ng 10,000 ang apat na ano nasugatan.
Opo. Yeah, Governor, malipat naman tayo doon sa topic doon sa peace and development in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. Do you think it will ever happen na magkaroon ng kapayapaan at kaunlaran?
Depende po yan sa pagpapatakbo natin ng gobyerno natin sa BARMM. Kahit ano naman kung hindi tama yung pagpapatakbo natin, hindi rin yan makatulong. Pero with all the resources provided by the national government to the BARMM government, I would think that they are in a very competent position to help and bring peace to the whole region.
Yeah, but definitely the previous administrations have always believed that security and development go hand in hand. So there can be no peace if there is no development. Whichever comes first, the development or the peace?
Dapat development ang mauna. Kasi kung hindi walang development, mahihirapan yan yung ano. Pero at the moment, ay okay naman sa Sulu. I mean, speaking of Sulu. Sa ngayon, sa isip na lang ng tao ngayon, ng mga hindi nakakapunta ng Sulu, ang isip na lang nila ng kala nila magulo. Sa totoo lang, kahit sa Patikul, kung magpunta kayo ng weekends, puno lahat ng beaches at napakaganda ng beaches. Alam nyo naman, archipelagic ang natin, ang probinsya natin, maraming isla, at lahat nagpipiknik kahit hindi weekend. So ganun kaganda ng natin. Sa isip lang yan ng ibang tao na yung hindi nakakapunta ng Sulu.
What's your take on the extension? What's your take on the probable extension of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority?
Tungkol doon sa extension, it has always been our position na kailangan mag-eleksyon talaga tayo because that is what the law says. The law says that the term of the members of the BTA is 3 years and that the elections is synchronized in 2022 with the local and the national election. So yun ang batas. So sa tingin ko mas maganda na mayroon tayong mandato. Dahil pag wala tayong mandato, look at the morality. Na paano naman magkakaroon ng ascendancy, moral ascendancy, na kami, mga local officials, ay elected kami. Pag manalo kami. At yung mga appointed to appointed positions, mandato yan. Pero pag ikaw ay na-appoint ka to an elective position, that is not really a mandate. Now, at the same time, baka naman ma-question yan by the next administration. Kasi ang gusto ay mag-extend without the benefit of asking the people in a plebiscite. Kasi ang batas, BOL, ang sabi ay payag ba kayo na kasama na ron yung term of 3 years and mag-i-eleksyon sa 2022. Tapos hindi ba natin tatanungin ulit? At siguro mas maganda talaga na mayroon eleksyon. Kasi pag walang eleksyon, sabi ko nga, baka ma-question yan. At ganoon din, at napag-usap-usapan na namin yan, na talagang i-challenge ko yan sa Supreme Court. Kasi kami, mga Muslim, ang tingin, hindi kayo marunong sumunod sa batas. Ngayon, gusto namin sundin ang batas. Ayaw na naman. Ano ba talagang gusto nyo? So, yun ang inaano natin. Bakit tayo natatakot mag-eleksyon? Ano ba ang problema natin? Nangangako naman tayo sa leadership ni Chairman Murad na tutulungan natin siya. This is going to be an MILF-led. Oh, that is what the law says. MILF-led doon sa BTA. Hanggang ngayon sa 3-year term na up to 2022, pag mag-eleksyon, it is still going to be an MILF-led na government dyan sa BARMM. Wala naman tayong interest dyan na mag-chief minister. Gusto natin si Chairman Murad o kung sino man ang irerekomenda ng MILF. So, yun sana para maayos at least taong bayan ang pumili at hindi ang ma-question ng mga yung mga susunod na administrasyon. Kasi, for example, pag na-declare yan unconstitutional at ang dahilan ay wala tayong electoral code. Supposing unconstitutional, hindi na tayo makapag-eleksyon. Sinabi na ng court na hindi pwede walang eleksyon. So, sa tingin ko, hindi ako abogado, that would render the positions vacant.
Okay.
Oo, kasi paglalapse na after 2022 ang term nila. What will happen? Pag vacant yan lahat. So, everything is suspended. So, pinagkaloko-loko tayo lalo. So, kaya, sige, ayaw ni mag-eleksyon. Pero, pass the electoral code. Pag pinas ng electoral code, ay pilit pa rin ninyo na marami kaming gagawin na ito o iyon. Kayang-kaya yan gawin ng parliament. Pangalan pa lang, BTA, Bangsamoro Transition Authority. That means you transition to something regular. What is that regular? It is the parliament. So, what is there that the regular parliament cannot do that the BTA can do? In fact, sabi ko sa kanila, you will be in a better and stronger position.
Okay.
Pag elected kayo. Hindi naman ako sasali niya sa eleksyon sa BARMM. In fact, kahit sa local, nag-iisip nga ako na kung takbo ba, hindi ba. Kasi mahirap yung patanda na tayo, pa tayo.
Okay, I can understand where you're coming from, pero I'm happy that you're still there. And the first time I met you was in 1996 with Secretary Rafi Alunan. But seeing you there, that's okay. Thank you very much, Governor. Sandali lang, don't you go away. Pero we have Attorney Iskak Veloso Mastura. He is the Regional Board of Investments Chair. Attorney Iskak Mastura, magandang umaga. Request lang nila Bernie magkilat ng bulletin nila Othel at nila Ilma, mga business reporters na associates ko. How is the business climate in your area?
Yes po. Salamat po at sa pag-imbitan ninyo sa akin at saka I would like to congratulate yung Tapatan sa Aristocrat for your 8th-year anniversary. I remember there was also a Tapatan forum in Aristocrat which I attended invited by the GEM USA during the ARMM period.
Of course.
During the time of Parukusin. So
Yes.
I'm just a bit confused why the current Tapatan is on its 8th anniversary when I remember way back in 2001, 2002, 2003, I had attended a similar Aristocrat forum.
Yeah, it may have been a different one, a forerunner, but we began 8 years ago. But anyway, welcome and we're happy to see you. Tell us, what's the business climate at BARMM?
So far, the business climate is what you experience also all over the country. And what's that? There is the impact of the COVID-19. The COVID-19 has had a very big impact on our business and investment climate because of the restrictions imposed by the quarantine protocols. Nevertheless, in the case of the BARMM, this year we are happy to report that there were some investors that registered, and these are mostly local investors. The first is the Al Muzaffar Agriventures Incorporated. This is a banana venture company with a project worth 990 million pesos, and the project proposal is for a banana plantation of 1,000 hectares distributed throughout Maguindanao. Now, we registered this in April, and this month we were able to register the ES Maulana Ventures, an oil exploration and extraction and development company. They have an investment worth 998 million, but we have only given them a provisional approval of their registration because they still have to get a service contract, and the service contract is usually signed by the president himself. So in this case, there's a provision in the BOL that the process of approval or the process going towards the approval and signing of a service contract by the president has to be done by both government, meaning the regional government, the BARMM government, and the national government. So that process has been stuck, or rather pending, in the intergovernmental relations body that was set up by the regional government and the national government. So we are waiting for the rules, regulations, as well as the mechanism towards the approval of a service contract. But nevertheless, we have given them some registration, provisional registration, so that they can already start at least lining up their investors once the awarding of a service contract is open again. So that's the current state of registration that we have. Last year we did not have a very good year because it was the height of the lockdown. We only registered 14 million an internet service provider. So, but this year we have already exceeded our target, which is around a billion, because of the first investor we had, the Amavi, the banana agriventure.
Okay.
Then we had a bit of good news the past month as well, when the Mindanao Development Authority said that they have encouraged the banana plantations that closed down in Maguindanao to reopen. And we hope that it will reopen. We are referring to the
Yes, attorney. Yes, attorney. Uy, naputol si attorney. You know, Mr. Minister and ASEC and everyone in the panel, it's the internet that will kill us, quote unquote. Okay na sana eh. Pero, well, sabi nga doon sa pelikulang Forrest Gump, it happens. Hindi ko na babanggitin kung ano pa yun na unang letra. It happens. Babalikan natin si Attorney Mastura. Well, we have with us Leticio Datuwata. Siya po isang Team Y leader at mula po naman siya sa South UP. Team Y Leticio Datuwata, magandang umaga po. Welcome to our discussions. Magandang umaga. Kumusta na po kayo dyan? How is the peace and order in your area?
Magandang umaga po, sir. So, currently, ang situation dito is doon part sa ancestral domain ng mga katutubong Tinuray ay may ongoing naman ulit na evacuation dala nitong offensive operation ng military against BIFF. So, ito yung situation. May, in fact, sa Barangay Ahan, Municipality of Ginulungan ay may 250 families tayo sa Piris complex ngayon under barangay may tumaig datoon sa Maguindanao. Nandoon yung 250 families at yung 150 families naman nasa barangay Buayan na under sa Dato Hopper ay nandoon pa rin sila sa evacuation center doon sa housing project ng barangay Buayan. Nag-ipon lang yung mga evacuees galing sa iba't ibang sityos papunta doon sa barangay sa sentro ng barangay at kung saan nandoon yung babaeng tinamaan at nagkapagkasugat ng kanyang dalawang anak. So yan po yung situation ngayon.
Opo. Pero ano yung sinasabi na mayroong mga armado na nananakot sa mga katutubo? Gaano katotoo ito? Nakikinig yung mga taga BARMM at mga taga OPAP. Tell us the situation.
Sa totoo lang sir, totoo yan. Since last year na nadeklara ang buong Pilipinas ng community quarantine noong March 17, pagka March 25 ay nagsimula na rin yung harassment sa mga katutubong tinuray at lamang yan, particular sa Barangay Kuya, Municipality of South Upi, and then Barangay Pandan, sa Bahar, and then sa Pilar, sa Pumugoyon, at Barangay Itaw, at dito sa tinatawag namin na Firis Complex, no? Halos balik-balik lang sila. Pag ilang buwan na medyo kalmado yung yung situation, nandiyan na naman dulot itong pagpasok ng mga armed group at dahilan doon sa pag-occupy ng mga kanilang lupain sa kanilang tinitirikan ng kanilang mga bahay.
Okay. Pero dito sa mga nangyayaring harassment na ito, may mga nasusugatan, may nangamamatay sa mga katutubo, Team Y?
Marami sir, hindi lang doon sa mismo paghara sa kanila ang dahilan ng pagmatay nila, kundi mayroon yung mga pitsi-pitsing ride in tandem, pagkapatay sa kanila, kundi hambang na sa kanilang bahay, hinaharas, minamasaker. Yun yung mga mode of killing na nangyayari, ambush, riding in tandem, no? In fact, yung karamihan dyan ay habang natutulog, kumakain. Yung pinaka-latest is going to their farm is a minor, mga minor lang, 18 to 17 yung edad. Papunta sa kanilang farm, na salubong yung mga armadong kalalakihan, yung 15 na batang mga kabataan pupunta sa kanilang farm, 13 yung nakatakbo, yung dalawa hindi nakatakbo, yun yung nahuli, pinatay at sinunog pa yung kanilang mga katawan noong April 2 dito particular sa Barangay Sanyag.
Okay. All right. Nakakalungkot yung pangyayari yun. Sige, sandali lang po. Dr. Pancho Lara, kayo po ay isang peace and conflict advisor. Tell us your views about what's going on. Dr. Pancho, good morning.
Good morning, Melo. And first of all, congratulations for your 8th year in Tapatan. No? And I also remember when you interviewed me a long time ago, also in Tapatan, and at that time, my task was to defend the Bangsamoro Basic Law immediately, especially after yung Mama Sapano incident, no? When yung time nung nangangampanya sa Senado na later on naging ball. Okay. There are two things sa dami ng pinresent kanina na data, no, ni ASEC Mayor, yung binanggit ni Minister Sinarimpo, maraming datos na ibinitiwan. At they are representative of outputs that were done by their offices. No? But the evidence and the data is also available that looks at outcome and impact. No? Hindi yung kung ano yung ginawa, pero kung ano yung naging epekto. So I would like to focus on that dahil maraming issues na nakadikit, lalong-lalo na, I'd like to focus on the normalization aspect. No? That being a very contested issue. And I think it's good that, Amil Sangkopan spoke before me and Datuato because that's your evidence. The point about normalization is that people should feel that the situation is normalizing. And obviously, right under the nose of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority and the BARMM, there itself, in Maguindanao, there are people who fear for their lives, who fear for their land, have not slept throughout the previous months because of numerous threats of deaths, etc. Secondly, we have actual evidence that from 2019, when the ball was signed, up to 2020, and now we just got new evidence we've gotten already for 2021, that the MILF combatants, some of them, are directly involved in violence. It is not true that it is only the BIFF. And there are media reports to support this. And there are also police incidents reports that actually put this forward. In 2019 to 2020, we had 19 incidents, major incidents. Now, if you measure that with the start of 2021, thus far, there have been 5 additional incidents. And I'll give you one example lang that was in the newspapers very prominently. You remember the entry of MILF forces in Basilan a couple of months ago? And there was an issue raised. Why are they there? Remember? Because there was a shootout between them and the government forces in those areas. So I'd like to clarify, the BIFF is not the only problem. Another problem in the normalization program is how does one discipline the MILF combatants that are supposed to be our peace partners already, but are directly involved, and I think that Tuatu will confirm this, some of their problems actually have to deal not only with BIFF, but also with MILF combatants. Now, having said that, that is not the entire story, of course, when it comes to the MILF. But ASEC, Mayor, no, if you look at the data, actually there's you put in the slide 70%. The decommissioning targets right now, if I'm correct, is only at 30%. It's not even at 50%. Because if you remember, phase 3 was even suspended last year, di ba? It is supposed to be only continued this year. So there are serious problems, I think, in terms of policy and implementation in the decommissioning process. Now, in fairness, we also raised this already, ASEC, even before you came to office, okay? These were issues raised actually as early as 2 years ago when the negotiations were going on. The absence of a one-to-one correspondence between combatant and weapons. The inconsistent implementation of you surrender, you give us a weapon. That is the case right now in Lanao del Sur. No extremist surrenders there without giving a weapon. Are the BIFF people whom we are talking to, who are considered at the moment extremist groups, and we are negotiating with to return to the fold of the law, are they being asked to surrender a weapon? Number one. Number two, for the 40,000 so-called MILF combatants, are they going to be asked to surrender their weapons also in exchange for 100,000 pesos in cash? Secondly, that entire re-entry cash is also a problem. That has been decided a long time ago. You do not give 100,000 people, 100,000 pesos rather, to a decommissioned combatant, in cash, because they will use it for other purposes, including buying a new weapon. And that is the case if you go to Minda News in a series of interviews they conducted last year with decommissioned MILF combatants who boldly declared in those interviews that they used the money to buy new weapons. I can also go to you and tell you about a recent visit I did to 2 of the MILF camps that are being mentioned. And I met with people there who said that, part of the process was to buy weapons. And they also complained about the delays precisely in the cash that's been given to them. So let's be very honest about this. There are problems in policy. We have to go back to one-to-one. We have to also make consistent moves to try and blend this with RA 10591, the national gun law. All of these are issues that need to be addressed. Now, we have actually sent numerous documents to OPAP. Kasi recently, OPAP came up with a statement. I think they did not like our point when we raised that there were problems with the commissioning. They are there, sir. I'd like to raise something, no? At the start of the entire peace process, I particularly was hired by then head of the panel, Marvic Leonen, and the other panel members to write the first document on decommissioning. And I submitted that. That was a task that was given to us, during that time when ginagawa pa lang, katatapos pa lang ng framework agreement on the Bangsamoro. And we pointed to a lot of these issues that would arise if certain things were not addressed, in the process. Now, finally, just lastly, Melo, I'd like to say something kay Governor Sakurtano kasi something that I think is really very important. No, I also agree, Governor, that there should be an election, okay, and in 2022, just like you, I think the MILF needs to actually gain more legitimacy in the process of running for an election. But I do not use the law to do that. I say that they need legitimacy. The MILF needs legitimacy because it is important that the MILF goes down to the field and it listens to its constituents and that it sees that its mandate comes from the Bangsamoro people, not from the president who actually appointed a lot of them into office. And that's very important. And I actually said in several interviews in the past that I even think that given the resources that they have, that there is a very strong chance that the MILF and its parties will actually win. And then the MILF has actually declared that in numerous publications also recently, that there is widespread support. Well, then if there is widespread support, I cannot understand why one is pushing for an extension without an election. Let's have the election. I think it's very important. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's have a short reaction from Assistant Secretary Wilben Mayor, and then we'll have Congresswoman Sacopan and Minister Sinarimbo, and we will go back to Governor Sakurtan. Yes. Assistant Secretary Wilben, please.
Thank you, Melo. Thank you, Mr. Lara. We recognize, of course, the opinion of Mr. Lara. He being also a peace advocate, and I think all of us pursues the peace in the Bangsamoro. There are some portion lang na pwede nating i-clarify and enlighten the public, especially on the phase 3 implementation. If we are in the normal times, dapat ay tapos na tayo sa phase 3 because that's really part of the deliverables ng normalization program. And supposedly, sa ngayon, the phase 3 is also supposedly is ongoing. Phase 3 is composed of 14,000 combatants to be decommissioned. But considering the situation now, lahat naman tayo na-experience ngayon ang pandemic. And most of the activities in decommissioning is movements of personnel, logistics, and everything, even funds. Ang pondo natin ngayon is ang ibang pondo ay na-realign sa mga importanteng focus ng government, especially sa health. Kaya ito yung mga factors na makikita natin, that's the reason why na yung phase 3 ay na-push back. But again, the commitments of the national government, which we take on the marching order of the president, is so we push through with this decommissioning. Actually, the phase 3 will initially start in August, as envisioned by the panels, the two panels, the MILF as well as the government panel. So again, we admit that there is a pushback on some of the programs, but this is not an intention on the part of the national government as well as the MILF. But this is due to the present circumstances, and everybody, I think, will admit that there are really factors, especially the pandemic, that will cause this one. On the other hand, as to the assessments on the 100,000 pesos that were given to the each of the combatants for their livelihood program, there is a intervention or method that the OPAP, through its socioeconomic team, assesses each and every combatant on what happened to 100,000 pesos that were given to them as an anticipated livelihood assistance. We have records on this, and we can present this to whoever wants the assessment based on the done by DSWD, as well as the utilization rate of each and every combatant on what happened to 100,000 pesos. But I think this would further be explained by Minister Sinarimbo on the claims of Mr. Lara. On the point or topic on the issue on the firearms, the 1:1 ratio per combatant was already relayed by the national government, because that is the intention of the national government, especially the security sector. That was already relayed to the MILF panel by the government implementing panel, to ensure that the firearms should really be on that corresponding number as to how many combatants should be decommissioned. But again, the implementation of the comprehensive agreement of Bangsamoro depends on the discussion and agreement of both the panels, the government, and the MILF. We should always be mindful that this is a continuing consultation between the two panels as to what should be agreed and implemented on the ground. But on the part of the national government, we have already relayed this matter on the MILF panel. Again, perhaps Minister Sinarimbo can add more on on the issues that were raised by Mr. Lara. Thank you.
Thank you, Asek. Kay Congresswoman muna tayo. Congresswoman, your thoughts, please.
Oh, okay. First, I'd like to give my personal comment on one particular statement of Minister Sinarimbo. He mentioned that he made mention of the previous political entity, which is ARMM, para makita daw kung sino po ba talaga ang nag-deliver, yung dating political entity o yung BARMM. Siguro po hindi na dapat natin binibitbit ang usapin ng ARMM. Kaya nga po nagkaroon ng BARMM kasi nakita natin ang daming gaps at challenges. Ang previous, mismo sa level ng policy, the previous Organic Act have several gaps and challenges that we tried to correct when we deliberated, even in the bicameral conference, and eventually passed the Bangsamoro Organic Law. Siguro wag na po natin binabalik-balikan na isang bagay. Ang tignan natin ngayon, ano po ba ang pwedeng pagtulungan para masigurado natin that there will be development and eventually sasabay na po doon ang kapayapaan sa ating rehiyon. Yung po dapat siguro doon ang tutok natin. Sinususugan ko yung sinabi ni Sir Pancho kanina na siguro nakita na natin, they started with moral governance. Saludo tayo doon. Pero siguro po kinailangan tignan din natin. Hindi po siguro, wala po sigurong Timoy Datuwata ngayon na nagsasalita para sa kanyang mga katribo kung normal po yung kanilang kondisyon sa kanilang mga communities. Siguro po kung medyo inclusive tayo, inclusive in the sense na binababaan natin at kinakausap at tinatanong yung ating mga kababayan, ano po yung concern nila. Kasi we always have to look at this political entity which is BARMM now, na produkto po siya ng isang negotiation. So meron pong mga kasama po tayo sa rehiyon na may sarili rin po silang assertion ng kanilang right to self-determination, sa kanilang right to their ancestral domain. So kung tayo po ay pumasok sa isang negotiation, wala pong masama siguro kung kausapin din natin at babaan natin ang mga non-Moro IPs at kausapin. These are things actually, Sir Melo, na nais nating itanong pag nagkaroon na ng schedule sa deliberation ng maliban sa final nating resolution. Ito po ang ilan sa mga katanungan. If we are to reset the 2022 election to 2025, what do we intend to do? Kasi hanggang ngayon po I personally have not seen a copy of the transition plan. I was one of those who actively participated in the passage of the Bangsamoro Basic Law, which is now the Bangsamoro Organic Law, in the House of Representatives. Witness po dyan si Minister Sinarimbo. So, somehow, hindi ko masabi na, yes, master ko yung buong ball. Pero pwede ko pong sabihin na kahit paano may konti tayong na-contribute nun. At pinotektahan natin yung karapatan ng ating mga non-Moro IPs. Hindi lang ng non-Moro IPs, maging ang pagsisiguro natin na merong institusyon na proprotekta at kakalinga rin po sa karapatan ng ating mga migrant settlers sa loob ng autonomous region. So, mga katanungan na kailangan sagutin dahil hanggang ngayon, isa sa mga requirements sa Bangsamoro Organic Law, transition plan. Wala po tayong nakitang kopya. Nagkaroon na po ng 2 hearing ng resetting ng BARMM election, pero hindi po napresenta na ito po yung transition plan ng Bangsamoro Transition Authority. Based sa planong ito, hanggang dito pa lang po ang natapos namin. Itong kailangan namin gawin, ano magiging timeline natin? Wala rin pong napresentang roadmap. Based sa transition plan, ano po ba ang naging roadmap nila mula 2018 nung umupo sila? Kung tutuusin po, by June 30 of 2022, more than a term po ang kanilang panahon sa paninilbihan as membro ng Bangsamoro Transition Authority. Because we who assumed to office in the 18th Congress, we assumed June 30 of 2019. Sila po as early as 2019, nandyan na. Marso. So, February, I think, 2019. They could correct me if my memory does not serve me right. So, yun po, Sir Melo, siguro maging inclusive. Nagsimula na tayo sa moral governance, maging inclusive. At siguro po hindi masama yung people's participation in governance na tignan din po natin. Kasi may mga programa at proyekto po tayong pwedeng makalap sa taong bayan. Marami tayong pwedeng magagandang programa at proyekto para sa taong bayan na makukuha natin, mabubuo natin sa pamamagitan ng pag-upo at pakikipag-usap sa kanila. Because ako para sa akin, most of the brilliant ideas and the beautiful how do we call it, programs and projects of government are those where the people were really consulted. So yun po, Sir Melo.
Thank you. Let's go to the good minister. Minister Sinarimbo, your thoughts and your reactions, please.
Yes, Melo, ganito. Ami, minention lang natin yung previous na setup. Ito yung institution of ARMM in relation to devolution and the need to create a more reasonable framework doon sa relationship ng LGU at saka ng region. Alam nyo naman po na 1989 kinreate yung ARMM. Wala pang devolution sa LGU kasi 1991 nangyari yung devolution. So nangyari sa atin, ito experience nyo, lahat ng services ay inaako ng mga departments ng ARMM. Yung mga local government units in the ARMM, yung internal revenue allocation nila na nire-receive nila, hindi masyado malinaw kung saan yung spending nun. Kasi tayo ang may hawak ng health services sa LGU. Tayo din may hawak ng social services. Wala silang social welfare officer doon sa kanila. So lahat nun, na-overlay siya nung autonomy setup doon sa ARMM. So, ang sinasabi ko, baka sa panahon ngayon ay reviewin natin yung ano na yon, yung institutional arrangement na yon, para mas maging malinaw ngayon kung sino ang may hawak doon sa basic social services sa baba. And then pag-isipan natin maigi kung saan dadalhin yung major programs ng region para hindi nagkakaroon ng confusion kung sino talagang may tutok doon sa services na yun. Yun lang naman ang sinasabi ko na bakit kailangan nating tingnan maigi ulit yung naging sequence ng devolution at saka institutional arrangement doon sa ARMM at saka sa LGUs. And this time around, dahil dinadraft natin yung, ginagawa natin yung local governance code for the region, baka pwede nang aralin maigi yon, lalo na nagkaroon tayo ng Mandanas ruling na magkakaroon ng additional 36% yung internal revenue allocation ng mga LGUs. Yun lang yung occasion na minention ko yung pag-review doon sa ARMM at saka yung LGUs. Doon sa issue ng mga IPs, yung mga non-Moro indigenous peoples, alam naman ho natin na ang major na challenge natin diyan ay legal framework. Ang sinasabi natin ay under the Constitution, Article 10, Section 18 at saka 20, nagsasabi na yung ancestral domain and natural resources ay powers granted by the Constitution to the autonomous region. So yung Constitution ho ang nag-grant niyan. Unfortunately, meron kang situation where an IP law has been passed at the national level. And in the ARMM, dapat ba o sa BARMM ba, dapat bang i-apply yung IPRA law doon sa mga non-Moro indigenous people? or doon sa Moro indigenous people. Kasi itong issue ng sino bang indigenous dito is also an issue that is important to remember. Kasi pagka minsan nadudulas na yung assertion, akala yung mga Moro ay hindi indigenous. Yung mga Tausug ay hindi indigenous. Indigenous yan. Maguindanao, indigenous. Yung mga Yakan, indigenous yan. So hindi pwede na ang mag-claim lang ay yung mga non-Moro. Ni-refer lang natin yung non-Moro para doon sa pagsiguro na yung reserved seats ay sa kanila mapunta. Hindi sa atin na mas dominant na nandito. Kasi kung lahat tayo na indigenous ay boboto, siguradong mamamarginalize ulit yung mga maliliit na indigenous na grupo rito sa atin, like the Tedoray o kaya yung mga Manobo. So, ang reference lang sa kanila na non-Moro indigenous is for purposes of ensuring na yung reserved seats under the Organic Law for Parliament ay mapunta sa kanila. So, yun lang naman yung reference. Now, ang buod ng problema natin doon sa non-Moro IP ay yung assertion ng NCIP, National Commission on Indigenous People, na yung regional office nila nalabas sa atin, nandun sa Region 12, sa Coronadal City, ay siya ang magkaroon ng kapangyarihan na sabihin kung asaan yung ancestral domain ng mga Manobo or ng mga Tedoray. So an outside entity from another region is entering the region, delineating the ancestral domain, and asserting na sila yung mag-i-issue ng title over the territory na inside the Bangsamoro region, na kung saan meron na tayong ministry that is in charge of that function. Meron tayong Ministry of Indigenous People in the Autonomous Region. So yun lang yung conflict dyan. Sino ba may kapangyarihan nito? Si NCIP na nasa Region 12 o kaya si MIPA na nandito sa atin. Ang assertion ho natin is under the Constitution, this power is granted the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. Under the Organic Law, the same power is granted to us. Kaya ho, ang assertion rito ay dapat tayo ang mag-determine nung indigenous ancestral domain, nung mga tribo na nandito sa atin. Hindi si NCIP na nandun sa Region 12 sa Coronadal City. So yun lang ho yung tunay na challenge natin dyan. Pangalawa ho ay yung doon sa mga naunang comment ni Mr. Lara, alam niyo ho, yung annex on normalization, nung ninegotiate niyan, ako ho yung buong taon na nakaupo doon sa Kuala Lumpur, nung pinag-uusapan dito. Isang pinaka-importanting prinsipyo na kailangan nating sundan ay yung pong movements across the 8 major programs in normalization dapat ho parallel and commensurate. Ganon din ho yung relationship nung implementation of all the agreements. Yung dalawang track, yung political at saka yung normalization track. Hindi ho pwede na mauna yung isa and then mahuli yung isa. Kaya ho, merong nagsasabi na apparently ang agreement ay kung hindi kayo gagalaw, hindi kami gagalaw. Exactly po. Kasi ho, lesson learned from the 1996 Peace Agreement and the Tripoli Agreement in 1976. Na pagka ho hindi tayo nagkaroon ng mutual na steps, pagka minsan yung gobyerno ho hindi talaga yan nag-implement. So we did not implement the 1976 Tripoli Agreement. Hindi natin in-implement yung socio-economic provision of the 1996 Peace Agreement. So sa atin ho, sinigurado natin na pag nag-steps tayo, pareho tayong mag-take ng steps. So like, if we move doon sa ibang aspects ng agreement natin, and these are considered political milestones, halimbawa, phase 1 o yung symbolic decommissioning, ano ang trigger nun? If we sign the Annex on Normalization, we will decommission a portion of the combatants of the MILF and its weapons, 145. If we ratify the Bangsamoro Organic Law, we will decommission 30% of the combatants and weapons of the MILF. And this one happened after we had a plebiscite. So 30% yan, 12,000 na combatants of the 40,000. So dinicommission ho yun. Tungkol ho doon sa weapons na 121, ganito ho ang nangyari dyan. from the very beginning, in the negotiations in Kuala Lumpur, we have been very, very frank with government na yung combatants natin ay 40,000, pero hindi lahat niyan ay may hawak ng baril at any given time. So it does not follow na 40,000 yung weapons. Kasi kung may 40,000 ng MILF na weapons, baka hindi autonomy ang ninegotiate niyan. Baka independence. What we said to government is that at any given time, we have roughly around 5,000 to 7,000 plus weapons. At yung weapons na yon, hawak ng mga combatants ng MILF. Kasi rotation ho yan eh. Hindi naman ho ito regular standing army na 24/7 naka-duty. Ito ho ay hindi binabayaran ng MILF. Kaya ho ang duty nila ay staggered yan. Hindi mo pwedeng ipastay yan all the time doon sa kampo. Kasi ho, kailangan mong bayaran. Ito naghahanap buhay eh. But at any given time, meron kang 7,000 fully armed MILF na combatants. Yung statistics na to, itong data na to, before tayo magpirmahan in 2014, sinulat ho ito on a personal note by Chairman Murad doon mismo kay Pangulo. Sinabi sa kanila na ito yung number of combatants, ito yung number of weapons. This letter was furnished the IDB, the International Decommissioning Body. So we've been very, very frank with government na ito yung organizational weapons, ito yung number of combatants namin. So wala hong hindi malinaw dyan. From the very start, malinaw ho yan. Na number. Now, doon ho sa sinasabi nating ibinili ng baril yung mga binigay na...
Ang narinig ko po, Minister, ay baka ibili ng baril yung 100,000.
Yes, pero serious ho na allegation yon. We will have to get into the bottom of this one.
No, it is just a possibility that Dr. Lara mentioned. It is a possibility that when you have 100,000...
Can I clarify?
Sige nga.
There is evidence because if you read the Minda News article of 2019, we will send you the copy of that. They interviewed one MILF combatant there who admitted that they used the money to buy weapons.
Pero
so hindi po yan, gusto ko lang clarify, hindi po yan akusasyon na nanggaling sa amin. Yan po ay lumabas doon sa mismong mga datos na lumalabas sa mga reports on the ground. Yung
okay. Yes, pero dapat malinaw yan. Kasi ganito ho nag-start yung 100,000 na yan. When the commitment of government was relayed to us, in fact, ang proposal ho namin dyan sa 100,000 na cash assistance sa kanila para makaagapay lang sila doon sa pagpoproseso sa kanila, doon sa decommissioning, ang recommendation ho namin ay i-breakdown yan into at least 20,000 per month para humabuhay lang nila yung pamilya nila. Yun ho ang request namin. Ang naging challenge lang ho ay yung implementation niyan under the government, binigay ho sa DSWD. Yung pong DSWD do not have offices in Maguindanao and in all of the provinces of the ARMM. Wala ho silang tao rito. So nanghihiram lang sila ng tao nila from the other region para pumunta rito sa amin. So ang naging rason nila ay ibigay na lang ng buo yung cash, one go, kasi ho, sayang daw ho yung oras ng DSWD personnel ng Region 12 na pupunta rito sa Maguindanao na hindi nila assignment. Kaya ho, from the very beginning sa amin, malinaw ho sa amin na yung pera niyan dapat gastusin doon sa ikabubuhay ng mga combatants natin. Kaya ho, sinisiguro namin sa inyo na hindi ho yan mapupunta doon sa pagbibili ng baril para doon sa mga combatants na to. Now, doon sa challenges natin doon sa decommissioning, ang pakiramdam ho namin, yung pong framework na inagrihan natin doon sa decommissioning process at saka sa buong normalization, tama naman po yun. Nagkakaroon tayo ng challenge doon sa delay in the implementation. So, dapat ho, yun ang reviewin natin, yung implementation delay. Bakit nagkakaroon ng delay? Halimbawa, meron tayong roughly around 8 billion noon na inallocate for normalization. But over the years, hindi nagamit yon. Nagamit sa pandemic na naman po yung portion noon. Kaya wala tayong assurance doon sa socio-economic package for the combatants maski na magde-decommission tayo.
Okay.
siguro ang kailangan na ayusin ng gobyerno. Kasi pagka the whole agreement ang nirepaso natin at nireview natin, magkakaroon ng uncertainty doon sa pinirmahan ng agreement. This will not be good for the parties and the country. Kasi kung magkaroon ng doubt yung MILF kung eto bang gobyerno ay seryoso na implement yung pinirmahan naming kasunduan, magkakaroon tayo ng trigger process niyan na hindi maganda. So,
okay. Yeah, Minister and Governor Sakurtan, I have a question here from Ana Felicia of GMA News Online. Are we still pushing through with the election preparations sa BARMM despite ongoing talks regarding the possible postponement? May preparations po ba? Siguro, si Minister Sinarimbo muna bago tayo magtungo kay Governor.
Ganito sa amin, Melo, at mga kasama natin. Ang commitment ng MILF at saka ng Bangsamoro Transition Authority, ipasa yung mga batas na naka-line up sa atin. Kasama na yung electoral code dyan. So, whether may election or wala, ang BTAO ay committed na ipasa yung electoral code. Ang major challenge lang natin doon sa electoral code ay medyo masalimuot na batas ito dahil marami siyang major changes na gusto i-introduce doon sa elections. Ang primary dito ay yung political party system. Dahil alam naman natin dito sa amin, sa buong Pilipinas na siguro, ang eleksyon ay among families lang. So pag natapos si Gob, yung anak niya. Pag natapos si Mayor, yung asawa niya. Pag natapos si asawa, yung anak. So yun yung ganong klaseng eleksyon sa atin, dapat siguro tingnan na nating maigi. At ang sort of introduction na para ma-revisit natin yung kagandahan nito ay magkaroon tayo ng at least 50% na political party system doon sa parliament. Para hindi ma-dominate nung clans yung parliament natin. Para matingnan natin maigi, meron tayong comparison, tama ba yung matagal na nating politika dito sa atin o kaya mag-move tayo doon sa political party system. Una yun. Pangalawa ay masalimuot din yung usapin doon sa sectoral representation sa electoral code. Isang classic na example nito, yung dalawang representation doon sa non-moro IP, ang sinasabi ng organic law ay dapat close ito doon sa electoral system nila. Ibig sabihin pagpili nila ng mga leaders nila and then siguraduhin na sila lang yung boboto. So, ang situation natin ay paano i-translate yung provision na yun doon sa electoral code na masiguro na ang mga boboto lang ay mga non-moro IP. So, do we have to issue an identification card for all non-moro IP? Para pagdating sa presinto, i-check sila kung sila yon. Pangalawa pagka nagpatong, yung non-moro IP na siya, bata pa siya, youth siya, babae pa siya, women's sector, religious sector pa siya, yung apat na yon ay nagtagpo-tagpo sa kanya. Yung mga sectors na to, meron ding representation doon sa parliament. Paano ba siya boboto? Boboto siya sa lahat ng sektor na nandoon siya? Boboto siya sa isang sektor lang at ma-exclude siya? Ano yung means of verification na yun lang yung ginawa? So, ito yung mga kasama sa masalimuot na dinideliberate natin doon sa electoral code. Kasi okay sa atin yung representation pero kailangan nating maayos yung tama. Pangatlo ay alam nyo naman talaga ang eleksyon dito sa BARMM. Ako ay naging abogado sa mga elections rito. So medyo kapado ko na yung sistema ng eleksyon rito. Marami pa kailangan i-improve doon sa electoral system natin dito sa region bago tayo magkaroon talaga ng eleksyon na truly representative nung will nung majority. Hindi lang nung mga namimili ng boto, namimilit na iboto, o namumuwersa na ang iboto lang ay yung kanila. So, unless they're able to level the playing field, paulit-ulit lang yung eleksyon dito sa region natin, the same result is produced. It has never solved the major challenge of peace and security in the region, poverty incidents, and the lack of development. Nasubukan natin ilang beses ng eleksyon pero ganito pa rin yung estado. Baka pwedeng subukin naman natin na ibang sistema para meron tayong pwedeng gawin na yung results na ito, yung poverty incidents sa region, yung underdevelopment, yung kawalan ng kapayapaan dito ay baka ma-resolve na natin. So yun yung pinaka-essential sa amin.
Okay, thank you. Governor Sakurtan, how do you feel about the question of our good friend from GMA News Online, si Ana? Paki-unmute lang po. Yan, okay. Good. One more time. Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead. Governor.
Anong question yun? Melo?
Yung tungkol sa, meron bang preparations for the elections? Dahilan sa baka matuloy, baka hindi. Anong level yung preparation?
Well, dapat nagpe-prepare tayo na magkaroon ng eleksyon. Pagkaroon ng eleksyon o walang eleksyon, dapat talaga ready. Una, dapat may pasa na yung electoral code. Yan ang bigyan natin ng prioridad. Gaya nga ng nasabi ko kanina, for example, pinospone yan ng ating pamahalaan o ng Kongreso at na-question yan sa Supreme Court at sinabi ng Supreme Court na kailangan talaga mag-eleksyon kayo. Na pag walang electoral code, paano tayo mag-eleksyon? Gaya ng sinabi nila. So, magkakaroon ng vacuum yan. So, baka walang opisyal ang BARMM. Dahil una, kailangan may eleksyon. Hindi, sabi nila, hindi makapag-eleksyon dahil walang electoral code. So, kailangan meron talaga. Gaya ng nasabi ni Mr. Lara Jr., kailangan talaga i-submit sa mga tao ng bayan. Kasi sinasabi natin, we have overwhelming support. So, why is there a fear to submit ourselves to these people who are supportive of our position? So, dito at saka of our leadership. In fact, during our last meeting, sinabi doon kay Presidente, 20,000 vehicles are moving around calling for the postponement of the elections. Alam mo, si Presidente, hindi naman yan galing sa dulo ng mundo. Alam niya naman ang mga nangyayari. Kaya dapat, sabihin lang natin ang mga totoo. So, yun ang dapat ginagawa natin. Now, going to yung sinasabi na normalization, kasi ang OPAP nagbigay sa amin padala sila ng 22 million. Pagbili raw ng mga small arms. Sabi ko, kung pambili yan ng mga armas, hindi, ayaw ko. Sa inyo na lang. So, this is a program that should not also be abused by us. Kasi tama yon si Mr. Lara na may mga ganon na reported na Kasi during the time of President Ramos pa yung programa na ganyan, na bibilin natin o bibigyan, ikaw, anong firearm mo? Yung lumang firearm, yung paltik, ibibenta sa gobyerno, bibili ng bago. So in the process, you are actually modernizing the armaments of these people. So yun ang problema diyan sa mga So sabi ko, kung yan ang programa natin, magbayad tayo ng armas, magbili na ayoko dyan.
Okay.
Balik ko ang pera nyo. Now, ngayon, sabi ni Mr. Lara na hindi lamang yung batas ang tinitignan natin. Dapat legitimize ang pamumuno natin. Anyway, we have committed the governors, local officials who committed to support as well, yung extension, ako at saka si Mayor Juan, Mayor Gianni, and some others na gusto namin magka-eleksyon, susuporta nga kami doon sa yung MILF-led kung sino rekomenda nila, sila pa rin maging Chief Minister. Pangalawa, yung sinasabi na dapat nakakasiguro tayo na majority ang MILF, hindi pwede na sasabihin natin. Ina-appoint lang yan ni Presidente na because that is the prerogative of the President to appoint because appointive pa ngayon. Paano na pag nagpa-appoint at in-exercise ang prerogative ng next administration na sasabihin, hindi pwede always kayo ang majority. Yun ang inaano natin. Now, the matter of party list, sabi nila, wala nga ang party list ngayon sa BARMM. other than the yung Bangsamoro Justice Party. So sa kanila lang, wala kami, hindi kami nagpapadala ng regional party diyan. So bibigay pa rin namin sa kanila para lamang kasi apektado kami. Apektado kami pag ito nag-fail pa rin yung ano na yan.
Okay.
Yung one-to-one, Melo, ang sinasabi na 40,000 tapos ang armas mo ay 12,000, doon na lamang tayo sa 12,000. Sabi ko nga, huwag natin abusuhin ang programa ng pamahalaan. Dahil kung ganun, paglulukuhan lang tayo. Walang kanyan, walang patutunguhan. Sasabihin mo na 40 ang kombatant, 10,000 o 12,000 ang armas. Meron bang kombatant na walang armas? O ano-ano? Hindi totoo yun, yung nagpasa-pasa ng ano. Alam ko, matagal na tayo yan sa mga kwan na yan, mga trabaho na ganyan. Alam ko, dahil nakita ko na yan. Yan sila, marami dyan sa mga nagsasalita. They did not see the past. I saw how it was in the 70s. So when war broke out in 72, nandoon ako. I was there and I was not a bystander. I was a participant. Kaya nobody can tell me that it was like this and like that because I saw everything, which they did not. So maraming salamat, Melo.
Thank you. Salamat po. Maganda yung discussions natin, but we're pressed for time. But anyway, Mr. Lara, Dr. Pancho, may tanong na nakarating dito sa desk, no? Pancho, you're still there? Pancho?
Yes.
Hindi kita makita, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Wala raw ba kayong mga na-interview mismong tao? Dahilan sa clippings daw yung sinasite ninyo. Ang sinasabi kasi dyan, baka hearsay yan.
Meron po. Hindi lang mo pwedeng banggitin dahil mailalagay rin sa panganib yung mga tao.
Okay,
Kaya ako ginamit na yung clippings, no? Ganun kasi it is already in the public domain. Pero I will encourage the media to go down dun sa camps, no? Just go there and ask the people because actually they're quite forthright precisely because of the same reasons that are being given, no? We need those weapons to be able to prove that we are combatants, no? Even if we're going to share it only between ourselves and other family members. But then that's the rub, you know? If you need to be able to give that because you want to prove you're combatant, why is that not being expected of any other MILF combatant? You know why I know this? Because very recently we were involved in the surrender of one ISIS member and we recorded it. We documented the process, and of course the military was very firm. No, you cannot. We will not accept if you do not have a weapon. You have to surrender your weapon. And then that fellow, said, okay, we'll surrender our weapon. But what will that require? He had to leave his weapon with the group, or else they would not let him go. Okay? So he had no weapon. So he had to buy a weapon just to prove that he was a combatant. The same sort of criteria is not being applied to the decommissioning process here. You see, you have 40,000 so-called combatants. Okay, combatants sila. I'd like to see how you define a combatant. If you have 40,000 combatants, you only have 12,000 weapons, 12,500 weapons, and then the claim that actually we are only going to decommission based on our responsibility the weapons that are owned by the MILF, because most of those weapons are theirs anyway. So we're not committed to the targets for all of those weapons. You see how ludicrous the process is. Now I can see, tama yung sinabi ni Secretary Sinarimbo, yun na yung napagkasunduan eh. Marami nga nagsabi sa akin rin, kalimutan mo na yan, Pancho, dahil yan na napagkasunduan. Tama yun. Kaya ako nga sinasabi, minumukay namin sa OPAP, nabuksan yung usapin para maayos kung ano yung pwedeng gawin, para masugpo. Halimbawa, binanggit ni Minister Sinarimbo, yung palang DSWD party dito sa ganitong usapan. Kasi kung ganun, dapat talaga dinistribute ng 20-20-20 para ma-prevent mo na magamit yung pera para bumili ng baril. Pero kung bibigyan ako bukas ng 100,000, ang baril ko shotgun, then unang-una kong gagawin, bibili talaga ako ng M16 para mas maganda So sa shotgun ko, hindi naman yun accusation na give eh. Yun ay isang logical conclusion sa isang sitwasyon na maraming panganib. Kami ay pinagtanggol nga namin, hindi mo pwedeng i-decommission ang isang combatant na uuwi sa baryo niya na lahat ng kapitbahay niya armado. Tapos siya biglang i-demand mo, ma-decommission siya. So we recognize that those are the conditions on the ground. But I suppose we should also agree together that there are still a lot of things that need to be repaired. For example, kung ganyan pala kailangan gawing flow yan sa implementation kung nire-release ng buo yung pera. Pero gusto niya pala from the very start dapat yan in tranches. Bakit hindi ganun ang ginawa? So that's my clarification to that point.
All right. Okay, thank you. Team Y Leticio, anong nakikita mo kinabukasan ninyo? Lalahok ba kayo sa eleksyon? Kakandidato ba kayo? O paano?
Sino?
Kami, sir, wala kaming intensyon na lalahok sa kwan. Lalahok doon sa personally, no? Wala kaming plano na magsasama doon sa pag-eleksyon.
Bakit
bilang
po? Bakit?
Alam na namin, wala kaming kakayahan doon sa kwan. Kahit natatakbo kami may doon sa pag-uusapan pa lang ng pera at yung proseso ng eleksyon dito, experience na namin, kahit na isang board member na napanalo namin, wala. Kaya kung wala kang pera, wala kang influence na kwan, yung 3G, no? Guns, guns, and gold, kung wala ka niyan dito sa amin, wala. Hindi ka mapanalo sa eleksyon. Kahit nga doon sa kwan, kahit nga sa aming mga dominant municipality, unless maliban lang kay Mayor Piang na siya yung naging mayor ng isa sa munisipyo dito sa South Upi. Kahit na hindi gumagamit ng 3G, napanalo pa rin siya dahil doon sa kapit, no? Doon sa tribo. Talagang kung narinig pa natin nung 2001 pa lang na eleksyon na pagiging vice pa lang niya is talagang buhay at dugo yung kinapital ng mga katutubo para lang maupong vice, no? Kahit na binubato sila ng M79 doon sa ground kung saan yung municipal canvas ay talagang nandoon sila, dadapa lang pag may putok. Kaya yun yung isa sa mga dahilan kung ba't siya nakaupo hanggang ngayon.
Okay, all right. Well, we're about to close. Can we hear a message from Attorney Mastura as far as the business climate is concerned? Because I had an interview with Minister Sinarimbo, and he said there are countries interested in doing business at the BARMM. What measures have you to attract them, to get them into investing in the BARMM, considering that it's still perceived as unstable? Attorney Mastura? Wow. Paano kaya tayo makakapag... Problema pa rin. Sige. Sandali. Ano kaya? Minister Sinarimbo? Yes, your thoughts?
Sir, yung pong maganda na nag-uusap tayo na at least yung mga ibang issues na hindi masyado malinaw ay nalilinaw. Doon ho sa, in particular, doon sa sinasabi ni Pancho na may issues doon sa ibang firearms na hindi hawak ng MILF. Dalawa lang ho yung klase ng weapons na nandyan. Ito yung mga privately owned na hindi hawak ng halimbawa, mga private armed groups. Either mga politician ba yan o mga kidnapper o iba pang grupo na may hawak noon. Merong program ho yan under the normalization process. Dalawa ho yung tracks dyan. Yung isa ho ay ito extensively discussed in the negotiations in Kuala Lumpur, yung small arms and light weapons. Meron hong dapat na gawin dyan para ma-address natin yung paano yung privately owned na hindi nakaregister. So meron hong programa dyan at alam ko yung under sa amin sa Joint Normalization Committee, meron ng extensive na study dyan na pinakandak tayo para humaayos natin yan. It's just really the steps that needs to be undertaken para ma-address yan. Pangalawa ho, yung private armed groups. Kasi totoo naman ho yun, sir, na pagka inalisan mo ng baril yung MILF, papaano yung mga politicians na marami ring baril? Kailangan ma-disband yan kasi private armed groups yan para patas ho lahat yung ma-level natin yung playing field para ho talagang walang may hawak na baril, hindi magamit yung baril doon sa politika. Doon ho
Pardon me,
sa
Mr. Minister, it may be asking for the moon, no?
I think government needs to do that because hindi ho talaga magde-develop yung region at hindi mag-stabilize yan kung madami ho masyadong baril.
Okay.
Rito. So,
Okay.
we all have to commit to that, including kami na mga nandito sa Bangsamoro, even if we are not members of the MILF. Kasi hindi ho talaga aayos yung region natin pagka masyadong madaming baril regulated.
Okay.
Kailangan talaga mapunta tayo roon. Doon sa investment climate sa region, alam ho ni Ishak ito, isa sa mga pinoproblema natin ay yung grant ng incentives at saka tax holidays ay kasali ho yan sa mga una talaga na binigay na powers ng regional government. Panahon pa ho ni Cory Aquino. Purposely to encourage yung investments in the region. Natathreaten lang ho yan nung creation, nung passage ngayon ng create law. Kasi under the new law is magiging single entity lang ho yung pwedeng magbigay ng incentives sa mga investors.
And that is the Republic of the Philippines.
Yes. So we need to revisit that to make sure na yung provision of the organic law is respected, na pwede pa rin siyang mag-grant ng tax incentive sa mga investors natin. Sa ngayon ho, medyo mahina yung pasok ng investments because of the COVID. Initially, 2019 at saka early part of 2020, marami hong interested at nakausap na tayo. Kami ho nila Secretary of Finance, si Secretary Dominguez. Kasama ho yung Qatar government, yung Saudi government, at saka yung mga Malaysian business people lang gustong pumasok. Pero kailangan nating ayusin muna ito dahil nahirapan ho silang pumasok sa atin.
Yeah, thank you very much. Attorney Mastura?
Yes, I'm back. I'm sorry my signal is not very good.
Pwede ka mag-PLDT o mag-Globe yan.
Advertisement po yan. Just to clarify yung sinabi ni Minister Sinarimbo, as of now, walang problema pag-issue namin ng incentive. Let me be clear kasi baka maging wrong message sa ating mga investor and business community. The power of the BARMM to issue incentives, tax incentives, remains. It's there in the ball. No? Yung nakalagay doon, RBOI should continue to administer the fiscal incentives under the Omnibus Investment Code and yung EO 458. But be that as it may, meron tayong sinasabing CREATE, no? Corporate Recovery and Tax Enterprises Act. Kasama po kami sa pag-draft nun. Meaning, involved po ang RBOI because we were consulted under the Philippine Investment Priorities Plan grouping of all investment promotion agencies. Kasama po kami doon. At we made sure that RBOI is recognized by the national government. So there's no truth or there's no doubt in the minds of the business investors that if you go through our office, that they will be given the tax incentives, and this is recognized by the national government. In fact, we are part of the whole...
Yes? Uy, wala naman yung signal. Well, sayang. Subukan natin. One more time. A 1, a 2, a 3. Wow. Talaga. Okay. Pancho, closing statements na tayo. I know you still have a meeting. Go ahead, Pancho. Pancho, closing statements. Yes, please. Yeah.
Goodbye. Thank you again and congratulations. And much appreciated to the other people who are here, Minister Sinarimbo, ASEC Wilben, no? Governor Tan, of course, Ishak, no? And Ami, and of course, Leticio. Marami pong salamat.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
See you again. Leticio.
Melo, can I just clarify again before
Oh, yeah, okay. Yes, please.
Gusto ko lang klaruhin na yung CREATE po walang naging impact sa aming power. Ang naging impact lang po doon sa yung level na pwede naming i-aprobahan. Pag 1 billion dito pa rin ang proseso sa amin, but it goes to the FIR.
Okay. So it's the national government if 1 billion and above. Okay. Sayang. Maganda yung clip na yon. Sayang talaga. Siguro si ASEC Wilben Mayor can also help us get them good internet connections one of these days. Okay. Leticio, message mo. Pagpapaalam tayo bago natin pakinggan si Monsignor Pedro Quitorio ng Areopagus. Yes, Team Y Leticio.
Yes,
Opo.
happy 8th anniversary ng Tapatan sa Aristocrat at pasalamat ako sa iyo, Sir Melo, sa pagkakataon na naging bahagi ng programa ito at nadinig ko kung ano yung mga pagpapaliwanag ng bawat isa at nakashare kung ano yung tunay na karanasan dito sa amin, no? In fact, hindi lingid sa kalaman ng lahat na talagang we are facing, no, kaliwat kanan ng mga challenges, lalong-lalo na doon sa komunidad, dulot ng harassment, killings, doon sa dulot ng land grabbing doon sa aming mga lupaing ninuno. Maraming salamat at hiyogupuan.
Okay. Team Y, paki-update mo lang kami kung ano pa mga nagaganap dyan sa inyong lugar. We will be happy to listen to your information. Governor,
yes,
sa Kortan, para po sa inyong mensahe sa ating mga kababayan before we sign off and listen to the message of Monsignor Quitorio. Yes, Governor.
Melo, sana lagi tayo magkakaroon ng ganito para marinig ng lahat kung ano ba talaga ang mga nangyayari at ano ang dapat ginagawa natin at ano na nagagawa natin para malaman nila na hindi yung parang nagtatago lang tayo at kwento-kwento lang at nagmi-meeting ng meeting. Wala naman nangyayari. So, dapat ganon. Now, tungkol doon sa sinasabi ni Secretary Sinarimbo na doon sa mga armas ng mga politician daw, ang mga supporters ng mga politician, at saka yung MILF, BIFF, sana yung mga yon ay mag-implement lang tayo ng tama na okay, anong napag-usapan na doon sa gobyerno. Sabi ko nga, wag natin abusuhin. Tunay yung gagawin natin. Kasi kailangan natin ng sincerity rito eh. Kung hindi tayo sincere, wala talaga tayong pupuntahan. Now, sinasabi, nandiyan mga marami pang armas. Pag wala yan na development sa area, talaga yung armas yan, hindi maaalis. So you will have to make firearms irrelevant sa buhay nila. How do you do that? Introduce development para maging, look at yung China noon, nakapajama pa naka-AK-47. Pero ngayon, naka-Amerika na lahat ng tao roon. Meron man nagdadala na naka-Amerika na AK-47? Wala. So, irrelevant na ang mga firearms. Kasi yung firearms na pinag-uusapan yan, 1970s pa yan. Hanggang ngayon, yan pa rin pinag-uusapan. Ang kailangan, you get it from me. Matagal na ako dyan sa ano niyan. We just need support. Kailangan support. Now, what are really mga support? Support infrastructure. Why don't we build more mga ports? Because you cannot have commerce without seaports. Maraming mga walang seaports. So, yan ang mga kailangan natin. Yung telecommunication natin. Yung mga daan natin, patubig natin, kailangan yan ng mga investors. We cannot just speak about investment and so on and so forth. Tapos, saan pupunta yung mga investors? Hindi naman loko-loko yung mga investors. Napupunta na walang pagtitelepono, wala.
Okay.
So, yun ang hinihingi natin. Na ganun lang gawin natin. Let us be sincere with this, concerted effort. This must be concerted effort.
Okay.
Especially kami, mga nandito sa BARMM. Wag kami sumama kung may maggagawa ng kalukuhan yan. Wag tayong maglukuhan. Dapat totoo. So yan ang pananawagan natin. Maraming salamat, Melo. And maraming salamat, Mr. Lara, Secretary Sinarimbo, ASEC Wilben, Leticio, Mr. Leticio, at saka si Ami. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat na sana meron pa tayo. Every week gawin natin. So maraming salamat.
Salamat, Gob.
We will never run out of issues, yes. Attorney Iskak, yung sinasabi mo kanina. Yeah.
My last
sakto lang.
message.
Thank you.
Sana hindi na ma-interrupt. My last message po. Salamat sa inyong tapatan, Melo. I hope we can be back. No? I already wrote my response doon sa chat box natin na ang change lang naman po is 1 billion up investments. Kailangan may final approval ng Fiscal Incentives Review Board. So, yun po ay klaro sa batas. So yun lang po, I did not want to create any instability doon sa statement ni Minister Sinarimbo na kailangan pa pong pag-usapan yung impact ng CREATE. But definitely we need the help of the whole of BARMM government sa investment side. Yung sinabi po ni Governor Sakurtan, totoo po yun. Alam niya po yan kasi businessman rin siya. Doon sa islands, kailangan ng power, kailangan ng internet, kailangan ng lahat ng mga infrastructure para ma-attract yung mga investors. So inaatupag naman po yan ng BARMM, tulong-tulong ang LGU. On our part, we are just a fiscal incentive giving body. Marami namang agencies po involved sa investment. Pero yun po ang pinaka-score natin, yun ang pinaka-record natin. Kung maganda ang pasok ng investment sa BARMM, ibig sabihin successful tayo. Kung hindi makita yun, hindi talaga mauurong yung sinasabing poverty alleviation. So yung poverty alleviation, talagang ma-address lang yan through investments. There is both public and private investment. Pero ang pinaka-importante yung private investment. Kung wala naman pong private investment, makita na yung investment ng government ay patungo din sa empowering the private sector na mag-engage sa business. Kasi otherwise, forever dependent tayo sa national government. So sa ngayon, wala tayong nakukuhang taxes masyado sa BARMM. So how can we be forever dependent on national government? We cannot be forever also giving incentives. We have to make sure na merong vibrant economy na yun ang magiging magpo-provide ng stability sa ating rehiyon. So
Okay.
hanggang doon na lang po. Salamat po.
Thank you very much. Congresswoman Sangkopan, please.
Marami na rin pong tayong nasabi kanina. Siguro pagbati na lang po ng happy 8th anniversary sa inyo, Sir Melo, at sa buong pamilya ng Tapatan sa Aristocrat. Tayo ay makikinig sa magkabilang panig pagdating po ng deliberasyon ng mga batas, ay panukalang batas para sa resetting po. Ako, I'm using, para sa akin kasi, Sir Melo, misnomer sa akin yung usapin na extension. Pagpaumanin mo, Minister Nagib, para sa akin, we're talking of resetting the BARMM 2022 election to 2025. It's not extending the transition because the Bangsamoro Organic Law anticipated already possible extension. It's provided already in the 4th paragraph of the provision on the transition period. So, klaro po yun. So, basically, we're talking of resetting the BARMM election. So, isang malaking bagay po na makaharap ko po ang aking governor mula sa Sulu, si Gov. Sakurtan, si Minister Sinarimbo na lagi ko din naman pong nakakaharap to pagdating sa Committee on Mindanao Affairs, si ASEC Wilbin pagdating sa Special Committee on Peace. Siyempre, isang kasama po mula noon, si Kakasyak Mastura, at si Timoy Datuwata. Thank you, Sir Melo, sa pagbigay sa amin ng
It's a
pagkakataon.
pleasure na makasama kayo, Congresswoman. Thank you. Pero this won't be the last. Well, Minister, your thoughts. We're about to close. Yes, please.
Yes, Melo. Una, gusto namin magpasalamat sa opportunity na makaharap yung mga ibang kasama namin. Sila Kasakur, alam ni Kasakur, nagpunta pa kami sa kanya. Kausap din ho namin sa Manila yan, maliban doon sa pag-uusap ng Council of Leaders. And si Ami has been a very good friend and a consistent supporter of the peace agenda in Mindanao. Tumulong ho yan lalo na nung critical na bicameral conference committee nung tinutulak yung BOL. Ano yung mga kasama ho natin from the non-Moro indigenous people, sila Timoy. Ang sa amin lang ho ay, ulitin ko lang ho, yung pong pagsusulong ng extension and consequently yung pag-reset ng election sa Bangsamoro, hindi ho ang intensyon ay manatili lang yung mga nakapwesto dito sa BARMM. Ang intention lang ho ay tapusin natin yung critical na transition period. Dahil marami pa hong hindi natatapos dun sa institutional arrangement. Ang isang magandang halimbawa ho nito ay yung kasunduan doon sa delineation ng Bangsamoro Waters at saka Zones of Joint Cooperation. Hindi pa ho natatapos yan. Pinag-uusapan pa ho namin sa IGRB. Ang malaking consequence nito ay yung drilling ng oil dyan sa may Mapon Island. Pagka ho lumabas yung oil dyan, dalawa ho ang problema natin. Pagka ito ho ay labas doon sa 22.22 kilometers, ibang arrangement doon sa sharing niyan. Kailangan nung i-determine muna ng Intergovernmental Fiscal Policy Board. Pagka hindi na-determine yan, wala hong makukuhang share yung regional government dyan. Kasi kailangan may determination doon. Pagka naman po ito ay pasok doon sa 22.22 kilometers na Bangsamoro Waters, ang malaking problema lang dyan ay hindi pa natapos yung kasunduan doon sa proseso ng issuance ng permit at papaano i-operationalize yung pirma nung parehong gobyerno, Bangsamoro government at saka ng national government. So, made-deprive ho tayo nung dalawa, nung development dyan, yung EDU niya, Exploitation, Development, Utilization, at saka ho yung sharing percentage. Hindi ho natin naayos yan. So, kailangan ho nating mabuo yan. Hindi rin ho na-implement pa yung provision ng organic law na yung collection ng taxes, lahat ng taxes, national or regional man yan, ay yung Bangsamoro Revenue Office ang mangungulekta niyan. Kasi nagkakaroon ho ng problema doon sa, eto alam ho nila AMI ito, pagka ho ang collection ay BIR, maririmit yan sa national, iikot pa ho yan doon sa DBM bago bumaba sa atin. Kaya nagkakaroon ng delay doon sa, dati sa mga nagsusweldo na naka-charge doon sa local funds. Kung mangyayari yung panibagong institutional arrangement sa collection ng taxes, yung pong Bangsamoro government mismo ang may hawak ng pera. I-remit na lang ho sa national yung 25% na share nila. So marami pa hong pagbabago na kailangan nating maayos bago ho talagang masabi natin na matibay na yung pundasyon ng regional autonomous government at pwede na nating isubject ito sa election na kung saan yung mga parties, yung mga politicians, individuals na gustong mamuno ay pwede na ho. Ang tingin ho natin ay in 2025 matibay na ho yung pundasyon ng gobyerno natin. Naka-transition na yung MILF, wala na ho tayong issue doon sa MILF bilang grupong organisado na merong armas. So yun lang ho ang pakiusap natin. Natapusin natin yan and then everyone can now participate in a more free and credible elections in the Bangsamoro.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Minister. ASEC, Wilben? Yes, please.
Hello, thank you. On behalf of Secretary Galvez, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity, giving us the chance to inform the public as well as our partners as to the progress of normalization process. Again, to underscore, normalization process is built and anchored on jointness with the national government, the BARMM, and the MILF. We work together, and despite of the pandemic that we are experiencing now, we will see to it that the deliverables on the part of the national government will be complied. We understand the bumps along the road, the challenges of the goals, but with the cooperation of the MILF, the BARMM government, as well as all those who support us, the peace advocates in the House and members of the House of Representatives, the Congress, then definitely the marching order of the President will be complied with at the end of the year. But again, we understand the situation now that there are still some deliverables that even will go beyond this present administration. Nevertheless, on the part of the national government, we'll see to it and will work hard that some deliverables will be complied with as stated in the normalization process. Again, maraming salamat po sa mga kasamahan po dito ngayon and magandang tanghali po sa inyo lahat.
Thank you very much. Kasama po natin si Monsignor Pedro C. Quitorio III. He's the president of Areopagus. Yun po nabanggit natin kanina, si Mr. Raymond Reyes ay nasa Aristocrat. Pero si Monsignor Quitorio ang presidente ng Areopagus Communications. Monsignor, magandang umaga po and your message please as we celebrate our 8th anniversary. Paki-unmute lang po muna. Yeah.
Yes, magandang tanghali po sa lahat. Maraming salamat po. Gusto ko lamang i-convey yung ating appreciation at pagpapasalamat dahil sa dedication commendable dedication ni Melo. 8 taon na po tayo. Talagang despite constraints, tuloy-tuloy po tayo, lalo-lalo na po itong sobrang isang taon ng pandemic. Isa lamang ang ating layunin ng tapatan sa Aristocrat at yung overarching na layunin, yun lamang upang ipagtuloy po natin ang mga usapin na nangungunang usapin sa panahon na ito upang sa ganun ay makita po natin the beauty of diversity of opinions, yung plurality ng ating perspective. Dahil sa ganun, makikita po natin malaking maitutulong po sa ating demokrasya at upang matulungan po ang maraming tao na naghahanap ng tamang landas at katotohanan at upang magawa yung dapat gawin. Again, congratulations sa Tapatan sa Aristocrat on our 8th year as public forum. Maraming salamat, Melo.
Thank you very much, Monsignor. Si Monsignor Pedro Quitorio is overseas. Nandun po siya sa Diocese of Borongan sa Samar, kaya overseas.
Sa Borongan.
Let me thank our guests, the Honorable Naguib Sinarimbo of BARMM, Governor Abdul Sakurtan of Holo. I wish to see your place one of these days. Congresswoman Amihilda Sangkopan, General Wilben Mayor, and Assistant Secretary at OPAP. Attorney Ishak Mastura, last-minute guest natin at the request of the business reporters. Siguro si Bernie Magkilat will call you one of these days. Si Dr. Pancho Lara ng International Alert Philippines at si Timoy Labiliticio Datuwata ng Timoy Justice and Governance. Si Melo Acuña po ito, pero let me end our discussion with a simple quote. Ang sabi po, the peace process we all aim for will not necessarily be a result of the mere signing of a treaty or agreement. It must become a matter of our everyday lives so that peace settles and lasts and becomes supported by everybody. We therefore have to give peace all the required care and preserve it and promote it. And the message comes from Hassan II of Morocco. Thank you very much. God bless us all. Till next time, happy anniversary to each and everyone. Thank you. Thank you again.